Hi, friend. Welcome to Wild and Waking, a sacred space for the woman unraveling what no longer fits, remembering the truth that's always lived inside her, reclaiming her joy, her voice, her power, and rising fully, fiercely, and without apology. I'm your host, Emily Rushell, and together we'll explore what it means to live in alignment, lead with soul, and awaken a life of abundance, authenticity, and purpose. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome back to Wild and Waking. Okay, over the past year, I have committed to studying the Wheel of the Year. This is not the first time that I have referenced this or I've talked about it, but as we have approached each of the holidays, each of the seasons, I have been deep diving them, participating in ceremonies around them, like weaving some of my own practices, doing historical research, listening to podcast episodes. I have been wanting to create this specific episode for a really long time, but wanted to give myself the opportunity to fully experience the year before trying to speak or teach to it. I am going to preface this by saying that although I have done a lot of research, I've read a lot of books, listened to a lot of podcast episodes, like by no means am I the expertiest of experts. And there is a lot of different, sometimes conflicting stories or information. This weaves together a lot of cultures and belief systems and myths and histories. And so if there is something where you have different information, great, let's have a conversation about it. You're probably going to teach me something new or whatever. Anyway. So this is my understanding of the Wheel of the Year at this moment in time. And I know a lot of listeners of this podcast have been on this journey with me, have jumped in at different points in the year to join this study as well. And so some of this may be a refresher for you. I also know that a lot of those women have become very interested in like, okay, how do I explain this to my husband? Or how do I share this information with my friends? Or integrate some of these practices as a family. And so perhaps this little overview episode would be really useful to share to someone, to give them like the Spark Notes version. Before we dive in, let's even just talk about what the Wheel of the Year is. Okay. It is a seasonal calendar that is the culmination of, like I said, many belief systems, ancient traditions, early people, really focused on the changes that happen in nature and what they invite us into. You will see some of these celebrations heavily embraced by pagans, witches, druids, Wiccans, but really wherever you fall in your religious or spiritual beliefs, there are pieces of this that I think you can integrate into your life. And I say that as someone who is married to a farmer. The number of times that we have been approaching a season and I'm like doing research, I'm like, yeah, yeah, this is literally exactly what makes sense on the farm, what we're preparing for, what we're celebrating, what we're experiencing, what we're literally harvesting and releasing. Like each of these celebrations is based on one of the two solstices, one of the equinoxes, or some more smaller seasonal festivals in between. These 8 celebrations are commonly called the sabbats, and they are spaced approximately 6 or 7 weeks apart. Some of them have like a very specific date that they fall on. Some of them, it's kind of like within a weekend. Some of them obviously are very specific to, like I said, the solstice, equinoxes, and what's going on astrologically with the sun, etc. Another thing that has come up a few times in conversations with women I work with is like the need to even deconstruct the word pagan. Because if you grew up in the church like I did, like there's a very specific connotation to hearing like pagan or pagan spirituality. A pagan is a person who follows or practices nature-based or earth-centered faith. Okay, it is a person who is literally working with nature, following the seasons of the year, and integrating that into their faith and spiritual practices. So let's just call that what it is, because I feel like that was even when I started this, like a sticky place I really needed to take apart within myself. But what I love about the Wheel of the Year is it gives us permission to stop expecting ourselves to feel, create, and produce the same way in every season. This is not the first podcast episode I have talked about this in like what it means to live seasonally, what it means to live cyclically, what it means to like take apart the notion that we need to be at the same level of output or productivity as if it's summer all year round. Nature does not bloom all year round, and neither do we. And so following the Wheel of the Year, I have really loved because it's like a very intentional marker in time with very specific intentions, themes, and purposes that invite me to reflect or act on different parts of my journey. And because they are spaced the way they are, about 6 weeks apart, sometimes we'll be approaching when I'm like, oh my gosh, already? Like, what happened to the last 6 weeks? Like, we all know what it feels like to just be going, doing, like going through the day-to-day motions, hustling through a season, or just trying to survive a season, or just enjoying a season without even recognizing the passage of time. And so I like following this within myself because it gives me the intentional space to do that pausing, to do that reflecting, to do that celebrating, and adding that intention and that ritual and the ceremony and whatever that means to you is something that I'm like continuing to fold more into my life. It's also been interesting, like I said, as someone who is raised culturally and like in the church as a Christian, how many pieces of this are so familiar to stories or practices that I have known. And I think, there's a lot of schools have thought about this. So I'm not saying this to get into any kind of theological or philosophical discussion, but it's like, oh, what did the Christians steal from the pagans? And yeah, I think that there's a lot of historical context of like ways that things were manipulated and changed to be able to fit narratives as different groups assimilated either by proximity or by force. But I think more than anything, we can see this as the culmination of cultures blending, of traditions blending, and finding the synchronicities between cultures. A lot of the traditions and stories that you will hear specifically around the Wheel of the Year come from like Celtic, Irish, Germanic, Anglo-Saxon type belief systems. But you'll notice as you dive in stories that connect from all over the world where people are celebrating similar things or doing it in very similar ways. And at a time when it's not like we could just hop on the internet and see what was happening in Japan or Brazil or, Iceland at any given time. But I think it really speaks to the truth that when we are living in touch with the natural world around us and what the seasons are asking of us, it really did like create belief systems and traditions that honored what was happening in the real world outside, especially for people who are living in close relationship with the land and even in agricultural based societies. So the Wheel of the Year itself, in the way that we see it, and it is named and practiced today, was formally put together in like the 50s or 60s. I meant to look this up before I hit record, but that's okay. And when that happened, they basically did deep research into these different practices, these different traditions, these belief systems, found the overlaps, wove some things together to like formally put together the Wheel of the Year. But long, long, long before that, all across the world, early civilizations, people, and up until modern times have recognized the solstices, the equinoxes, and some of the things that happen in between. So that's just a little bit of the historical context. And before we dive in, I also want to invite you, like I said, wherever you are in your belief system, I want you to take what resonates and research further if you are curious. There are so many deep dives you can do. There's so many rich stories. And even one like stories that are maybe outside of like Celtic tradition, for example, that have been woven into like really matching the energy for some of these different things. Like I think about when we enter the dark half of the year, that's often associated with Persephone, which is a, Greek myth all about the descent and, Demeter, and like the barrenness of winter. And then as Persephone returns in the spring, like the whole world opens up and blooms again, right? We'll see those themes woven out across many belief systems. So I love it. It has been a joy. And I am going to give you an overview, and I invite you to explore further. Some of my favorite resources have been, there's a book series where there's like a little book for each of the holidays called Llewellyn's Sabbat Essentials. And it has rituals, recipes, lore for the winter solstice, for Imbolc, for like each of them. And so I like that it gives, first of all, an overview of the Wheel of the Year as a whole is like the first chapter in every book, and it's consistent. And I like that because it's like getting it into my brain. Does anyone else ever just wish you could like lay your head on a book and know it all? So I feel. Then it has a chapter about the old ways where they explore all sorts of different traditions and belief systems. And then they go into more like modern times, the way it's celebrated and honored. It's called the new ways. So I would say that's like more modern era celebrations. And then they do go into some more things that you would classify as being like witchy, like spells and divinations, but, ceremonies, things like that. And then they have a section of recipes and crafts, many of which were very familiar to me. In fact, a lot of the Wheel of the Year is very familiar to me. It's just like calling it by a certain name. They have like prayers and invocations, if that would speak to you, journaling prompts. What else? I'm like flipping through one right now. Correspondences, information for further research. So I really love that. I also I have a beautiful, it's called the Wheel of the Year Illustrated Guide to Nature's Rhythms by Fiona Cook and Jessica Rue. So pretty. I love that. There's children's books for each of them. There are podcast episodes, deep dives. I know I love the Demystify Magic deep dives on each of the holidays. There's so much you could go and explore and do, but I just wanted to give this as a little overview for this community, like I said, for yourself or even to share with someone else. So we are going to start with Mabon because that is what is approaching in September. And that is the moment where I like really formally was like, I am beginning my deep dive into the Wheel of the Year. It's like the first ceremony that I did. And that typically happens like September 21st through 23rd. We have Samhain, which is end of October, October 31st into November 1st. Yule happening December 20th to the 23rd. Imbolc somewhere between February 1st and 2nd. Ostara, that's March 19th through 21st-ish. Beltane, April 30th, May 1st. Litha, June 20th through 22nd. And Lughnasadh, August 1st through 2nd. And interestingly enough, that is when I am recording this. So this is my last one. So some people celebrate on a very fixed date. Some celebrate on the exact astronomical event, the closest weekend, whenever the seasonal change becomes visible or, applicable where they live. It is completely up to you. It is like, in my opinion, it's like the energy to work with of the season and the time around it. There are no rules here. And that is also something that has had been deconstructed in my community of like, there's no right or wrong way to do this. There is no Wheel of the Year police. There's no governing body to make sure you are doing everything perfectly. It is like, take what resonates, honor it in a way that makes sense for you. If it comes and goes and like you didn't give it a second, like it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, we are going to jump into Mabon, which is the autumn equinox. This year that falls on September 22nd. On the wheel, it is the second harvest and entrance into the darker half of the year. Outside in the nature, and I guess I should preface, I am in the Northern Hemisphere. I am in rural Illinois, smack dab in the middle of the United States of America. If you were living in the Southern Hemisphere, it would be the opposite. I am not going to speak to that because I will probably get confused, and there are probably other podcasts and resources that will better speak to that. So I'm going to speak through the lens of my experience in the middle of the Midwestern USA. And also know that some of this is going to be slightly different regionally, right? February in Maine is going to be pretty different than February in Florida. Okay. So we're just wrapping our heads around the energies. We don't need to go into the whatabouts. We don't need to go like, well, my mama. Okay. We're going to chill. We're going to be chill about this. Okay. What's happening in nature at the autumn equinox? Day and night are just about equal, or as equal as they are going to be. After the equinox, our nights become longer than our daylight. By this point in September, I know for us, we are beginning harvest. I'm married to a farmer. We harvest field corn and soybeans. But if you are a gardener or live in a place where there's orchards around you, they are producing their abundance. We are harvesting. This is awesome. Leaves are beginning to change. Animals are starting to gather and store food. The natural world is beginning the preparations for winter. We're not quite there yet, but like it's fall, right? It's autumn. The equinox represents the balance. It's not permanent. It's a fleeting threshold, but it is right before the year tips from more light into more darkness. Autumn harvest celebrations are ancient. They're widespread. Mabon is a relatively modern name. You can go Google all the history behind that. Whether you call it Mabon or the autumn equinox, you're golden. Some themes or intentions for the Sabbat are going to be gratitude, balance, reciprocity, harvest, preparation for winter, generosity, preservation. Think of canning, like we're harvesting from the garden. We're getting ourselves all ready for what's to come. And we are releasing what is complete, what is no longer serving us. The trees are literally dropping their leaves. Our flowers are starting to get a little droopy, right? This is on the other side of the bountiful growing season. We are literally harvesting, we are releasing, and we are preparing. So obviously, symbols that are going to go along with this. Apples, baskets, grain, acorns, fallen leaves, cornucopias, like the Hobby Lobby fall section, y'all. Colors, rust, orange, burgundy, brown, amber, deep green, gold. Foods associated with this holiday. Apples and pears, grapes, wine, squash, root vegetables, nuts, bread, cider, like preserved foods that we're getting ready for winter. So in order to honor this, you can think about making a seasonal meal. Like my favorite thing to make in the fall is roasted butternut squash with Brussels sprouts and pecans and like cranberries mixed in at the very last minute. And then I make some chicken with like maple syrup on it and I serve it with rice. And oh my gosh, it just tastes like fall, right? Going to an orchard, going pumpkin picking, right? If you're a person who does canning, I admire you so much. That is not my journey right now, but like the harvesting, okay? I'm married to a farmer where harvest is a season for us. I am well prepared to honor Mabon, but I will say honoring harvest as a season with this intention for me has decreased a little bit of the stress and anxiety and overwhelm that comes from me in harvest time when our life is very full and very busy and I'm often solo parenting. It's like put me in a position of gratitude and intentionality. Not all the time, but it has helped with that mental reframe. It's a really good time to think about, what kinds of things are you harvesting in your life? What are the fruits of your labor that you are harvesting? What are you ready to release along with the trees who are dropping their leaves? What are you needing to shed? How are you wanting to prepare for the colder months ahead, right? I know this time of year I like to spend a lot of time outside because I'm like soaking it all in before the winter comes, right? So we're really focused on that gratitude and that abundance and that release and preparation. Okay, so that's what's coming up next. And I know you're thinking, wow, I already did most of those things this time of year without even knowing that it was related to the wheel of the year. Exactly. Amazing, right? Okay, next up, Samhain. Okay, this is spooky season. This is October 31st, November 1st. This is in the wheel of the year, the traditional beginning of winter. A lot of people more in the magical witchy space call this like the witch's new year or the spiritual new year. This is when harvest is ending. If we're looking back out to nature, plants are like, trees are becoming bare, plants are dying out, animals are preparing for scarcity. The land is transitioning to dormancy and rest. Darkness is becoming more increasingly dominant. Historically speaking, this would be when cattle return for summer pasture. Families are preparing for the harsh winter ahead. Samhain is one of the oldest Gaelic seasonal festivals. It is known as this liminal time where the usual boundaries between the human world and the other world, or the unseen, the spiritual realm, whatever you want to call it, became, less stable. We say the veil is thin. A lot of stories around this talk about like returning spirits, supernatural experiences, divination, disguise, protection, like hospitality for the dead or our ancestors. You will see a lot of overlap here, or what has created Halloween, right? Samhain, like Irish and Scottish folklore, All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, All Souls Day, customs of like putting on disguise and going house to house. We can see how that all changed over time, right? Turnip lanterns eventually became pumpkin jack-o'-lanterns. We also see overlap with things like Dia de los Muertos, like obviously celebrating a totally different belief system, but there is a lot of overlap here in the themes of ancestors, remembrance, death, grief, endings, mystery, divination, protection, transformation. Like, this is the time where we are honoring those who have come before us. We are in full preparation for the dark half of the year. Kelsey and I have chosen to host our Veil Fall retreat in a time approaching Samhain, because our intention for this retreat is, what does it look like for that veil to fall? What does it look like to meet and befriend and love the depths of yourself? What does it mean to really stop fearing the darkness, stop fearing the magic, stop fearing your power, and like fully step in, right? We've been taught, I know even my first encounters with Samhain, I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. Is this bad? Is this evil? Is this wrong? And that is such like a curated imagery from my experiences in the church, and even from a cultural, social aspect and a media aspect, right? Like, light is good, dark is bad. If you look at like every Disney movie from our childhood, it's like, the hero, the good guys were always dressed in white and had light and brightness. And then like the villain, the bad, the evil was like, had this like darkness to it, right? We've been so conditioned to fear the dark, both externally and also within ourselves. And so that becomes a source of shame as we experience these hard or negative or heavy emotions of shame, anger, guilt, frustration. And really, like, the next era of our journey is alchemized when we meet that and we integrate that into our lives, and we can move through the darkness without fear, without shame, without judgment. We become this like sovereign queen that is fully integrated. So that is why Kelsey and I have chosen to do the retreat that we're doing in Samhain season, because there is so much of that, like, the grief and the death and the endings, and like what that means to transform and embrace. Symbols associated with Samhain, and anything related to our ancestors, photographs, candles, keys, bones, doorways, apples, nuts, cauldrons, lanterns, of course, a lot of the things you would think of spooky season. Colors being like black, charcoal, deep purple, that red, burnt orange, silver, gold. Foods, apples, nuts, fruit, vegetables, stews, dark bread, right? Like family recipes, things that are like really rich and nurturing. Some very simple practices, creating an ancestral altar, like sharing stories and conversations of those who have gone before you, maybe lighting candles in their honor, cooking a family recipe, visiting or tending to a grave, writing things down that you're ready to release, something that has ended, like honoring a period of grief for a season. I'm trying to think of, recently I was having a conversation with a coaching client, and we were talking about an identity that she had held for a really long time, and something that really she was ready to let go of. And I'm like, it's almost like you need to host a funeral for it. Like, you really have to put it to rest and let it be. Like, this is the season to honor it and allow things to end, and to like I said, let the leaves fall away. Then, of course, we get into Yule. I have never loved winter as much as I did last year. And it is because my entire perspective of December, of that time of year, and even into January, like, what does that mean for me as a person and for what is happening outside? Completely reframed. So Yule is the winter solstice, right? This is December, 20th through 23rd-ish. This year in 2026, it's on the 21st. It is the longest night of the year. It is the rebirth of the light. It is Farah's birthday. That was for my Akatar fans, right? But this is the shortest day. This is the longest night. The land is dormant. Maybe there's snow. It's really cold. But that is the moment when we hit the winter solstice that it's like, we made it. Like, this is as dark as it's going to get. And after this, the light comes back. Ah! Yule has so much history and lore, a lot of roots in Germanic midwinter traditions. Historical celebrations included feasting, drinking, fires, offerings, gift giving, evergreens, communal gathering. But we also know ancient places like Stonehenge were created to honor or to recognize the winter solstice, right? This goes back so long, okay? There are countless stories and traditions about like things being reborn at Yule, like honoring that darkness. There's truly so many mythic frameworks. And then obviously Christmas. Christmas and Yule have heavily influenced one another. There has been a lot pulled from Yule into Christmas, evergreens, fires, food, lights, gifts, gathering. Like, it's all part of the winter things, right? But again, this is like woven traditions over many, 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 many centuries. Themes for Yule: that hope, endurance, rebirth, rest, renewal, faith, that light within the darkness, like honoring where we are at in the winter, like just how far we've come, and like the hope for renewal that's on the other side of it. Symbols would include evergreens, candles, wreath, bells, stars, holly, Yule logs. That's like a huge thing that I would like to do this year, the Yule log. Obviously, colors: green, red, white, gold, silver, dark blue. Foods associated with Yule: oranges, nuts, gingerbread, roasted food, spice cider, warming type drinks. A lot of people over Yule like to go out and watch the sunset or the sunrise, or stay out or stay up all night for the longest night of the year. Practices like having a candlelit dinner, making or decorating a Yule log and letting that burn, bringing evergreens inside, decorating accordingly, sharing a feast, obviously gift giving, choosing a source of light to tend to throughout the winter, and just really like the gathering and like bringing people together. We already do this in our modern culture so much. Like, there is so much gathering and feasting and candles and evergreens and all of the above in this season. And for me, what was really cool is like, obviously, I have experienced this historically in the approach to Christmas. But last year, knowing that Yule continues, or the Yule season continues through the holidays and into the new year, made it a little bit less like, oh, like I don't have to put everything away. Now, I'm a person, I want to put the like very, very Christmassy things away before the new year. The stockings, the Santa, like the things that scream Christmas. But one thing I have done for as long as I can remember is I keep up winter decorations like into February, like trees, white lights, reindeer, pine cones, like anything that says winter, like that is twinkle light season for a while. Like, yeah, the colorful bulb Christmas lights, like those scream Christmas to me. I got to put that clutter away. But I keep up twinkle lights and like that evergreen feel well into February. And it makes my house so cozy and it makes me so happy. So happy. Something you can reflect on. Like, what does the season of darkness mean to you? Like, how do we create the light in the dark? Also, 10 out of 10 recommend buying a shit ton of battery operated on a remote candles on Amazon. I have like specifically my dining room, but I will get more. My house full of them, and I can literally just boop, turn them on for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, a whole evening, whatever, without, having to actually go light all the candles or worry about like how they're dripping or how much they're burning or not burning. I can just like turn them on and have the ambience. Sometimes it's just for a few minutes in the morning as we're getting ready for school. Great. Or like right after I can drink my coffee. I can pop them on when I'm making dinner. I love it. It's made me so happy. Okay. Then we go into Imbolc. Now this is like very end of January 31st through like February 2nd. And it is the very first subtle signs of spring. Now, this is definitely the one of all of them that I was like, first signs of spring, like not here. Not here. But we do see daylight is noticeably increasing. In some places, that's when they're calving, lambing, sap and water starts changing. Birds might be becoming a little bit more active. Like the earliest of plants start to emerge. Again, where I'm living in January, not that much. But I understand the theoretically, right? This is like the very, very first, like where the end of winter is approaching the end of the horizon. I mean, not really. We're still in it, but there's hope, right? Okay. Imbolc is now very closely associated with Brigid, a pre-Christian goddess connected with poetry, healing, smithcraft, fire, and inspiration. She then was adopted by the Christian belief system, specifically the Catholic faith, and she is now a saint, Saint Brigid, yada, yada, yada. Again, over centuries, traditions blended. But a lot of traditional practices, including weaving Brigid's crosses, visiting sacred wells, lighting fires and candles. Like fires are a part of like every freaking holiday, and it is my favorite as an Aries. I know I've seen a lot about like making Brigid dolls, again, sharing a meal, blessing your home, livestock, the land, etc. We'll see, you might see modern connections in St. Bridget's Day, in spring cleaning, in Groundhog's Day, seasonal weather divination. But there's all sorts of lore that we see in these modern practices. But themes and intentions for Imbolc: first beginnings, inspiration, creativity, cleansing, healing, protection, devotion, tending to the spark, right? I think about this in terms of, the connection it said with like that spring cleaning. You're like through the thick of winter, you're like, oh my gosh, I just need to be a little bit refreshed. I need to cleanse things out. Like I need to start doing something with my hands. I'm getting a little stir crazy. I'm like ready to start thinking about what's coming on the other side of this, polar vortex. Symbols and colors associated: candles, hearths, Brigid's crosses, wells, milk, lambs, snow, smith's tools. Colors: white, cream, pale green, yellow. Foods: bread, butter, a lot of dairy. As someone who can't eat dairy, like what a bummer. Oats, potatoes, seeds, simple soups. I'm not going to lie, last year, this was one that like kind of came and went, and I was like, oh yeah. Like it just didn't super resonate with me in that season. I had also just had a baby like 5 seconds before, 4, 5, 6 days before. But I know a lot of people around me were like lighting a candle for a dream that you want to tend into the new year, and maybe cleaning small areas of your house. Like it doesn't have to be a massive overhaul of anything, but like kind of that idea of being creative or tending to your spaces, doing something with your hands. Like I said, Brigid's crosses, they're like woven together. That's a really big thing. Writing, baking, mending, blessing your home, doing creative work, and starting to be on the earliest lookout for spring, right? This is kind of like a tending, creative reorganizing. Again, did not go all in last year. Too busy having a baby. Okay, next up we have Ostara, the spring equinox. This is somewhere around March 19th through the 21st. It is where day and night are nearly equal again. It is like where the light overtakes the darkness, right? Yay, hallelujah. In nature, daylight is increasing. We are starting to see the hope of spring. Seeds are starting to germinate. Maybe early plants are emerging. Animals are becoming more active. Where I live, we are not planting, but we're certainly talking about it. We're certainly getting jumpy about it, even though planting's like really, I don't know, a month, 6 weeks, 2 months away, right? But all the farmers are yapping. When are we going to get in the field? What are we planting? If you know, you know. This is like the new beginnings, okay? There is a lot of, again, history overlapping Ostara with Easter. We have connections, right, to the eggs, ancient associations with life that has become part of Easter practice. We have a lot of symbolism with bunnies, fertility, rebirth. Obviously, Easter bunny. Our themes are going to be around renewal, balance, germination, possibility, growth, movement, new beginnings. Like when I just, again, think about the spring Hobby Lobby aisle, right? We're looking at eggs, seeds, nests, rabbits, sprouts, dawn, flowers, green, yellow, lavender, pink, pale blue. This is like your pretty Easter dress. That is the theme for Ostara. Foods associated, eggs, fresh green, sprouts, seeds, honey, early herbs, light breads, like light cheeses, right? So in this time of year, simple practices, planting seeds, planting your garden, greeting your greenhouse started, decorating eggs with symbols or intentions, like refreshing or redecorating your home. I know this is the time of year where I'm like, okay, if I haven't put it away already, it's time for winter to go. We are putting all the spring stuff out. We are like bringing some more life and some green and some flowers. This is a time of year where you might feel a lot more refreshed and rejuvenated to start taking steps towards an idea. In fact, January for a lot of people, like we're still in the middle of darkness dormant season. Like Ostara is kind of the beginning of like, okay, I'm ready to be seen. I'm ready to start like taking steps towards what's to come. This might be where you start taking more intentional action. Like you might start feeling that like spring energy where we start moving forward. Okay, Beltane, I think I'd be biased. I think this might be my favorite. Other than like the ones that I have traditionally celebrated, like obviously like Samhain, Halloween, Yule, Christmas, right? As far as like things that were relatively new into my awareness, I love Beltane. Okay, I hosted a Beltane retreat earlier this year called Bloomfire because I love the intention for this retreat so much. So it's like April 30th through May 1st. It is like the beginning of the summer season. My 7-year-old corrects me on this all the time because the first day of summer is actually into June, right? Okay, but we're talking about like culturally summer season, right? Trees are starting to flower, leaves are starting to come out, pastures are becoming abundant. It's starting to become warm. The world feels vital again. Pollinators become more active. The land is entering a visibly fertile season. Okay, this one also has, oh my gosh, so much rich history in lore, especially from Gaelic traditions. Fire was it like this was a huge fire festival. Cattle were driven between two fires for cleansing and protection as they entered the summer pasture. This is where we see mayflowers, maypoles, maybushes, decorating. Like there's a lot of stories and traditions around like the morning dew, dancing, courtship. Like think of big, bold, bright energy like the song Kingdom Dance from Rapunzel. I use it so much in my Bloomfire marketing because like that song sounds like Beltane to me, right? A lot around, just the world waking up in full expression. There's a lot of fertility connection in this, a lot of creativity in the land, in art, in sexuality, in life force, right? We see connections, flower crowns, the May Queen, the spring festivals, themes and intentions of vitality, desire, pleasure, fertility, creativity, protection, sensuality, flourishing. See, the thing is, like, I write notes and then I get really excited talking about something, realizing that it's in my notes, like, literally 3 seconds later. So you're welcome. But symbols, you're going to see bonfires, ribbons, flowers, bees, garland, vivid green, like pink, bright yellow, red, foods like very sensual kind of honey, berries, fresh greens, like edible flowers, like just, it is like this beautiful, rich celebration of life becoming anew. There is a lot of mythology and storytelling around fertility. I think about this one with what is the name of the celebration in Akatar of Tamlin and having to like take a maiden so the world can regenerate in the spring. Like that is Beltane, now that I know. So some things that you can do: decorate with flowers, dance around a fire, have a fire, light a candle, plant in your garden, bless your garden, wear flowers, make a flower crown, make room for pleasure without needing to earn it, whatever that means to you, and name what needs protection as it begins flourishing. And I think this is a really intentional time, especially on the other side of the dark half of the year, to think about like, what is blooming within me? That's a lot of the work we did at Bloom Bar. What is blooming? What is coming fully alive through me right now that is ready to expand and flower and be nurtured and tended? Okay. Then we move into Litha, the summer solstice, June 20th through the 21st, also known as midsummer. I think about here, I mean, locally, like 45 minutes away, they always had a midsummer arts festival, and I didn't even put two and two together. It was probably on the summer solstice. But this is the longest day of the year, the peak of the sun, right? Long days. This is like, it's 10 o'clock, and you're like, how is there so light? How am I ever going to get these kids to bed, right? Garden's going crazy. Trees are in full green, full color, shortest night. Obviously, then this is where it transitions to darkness starting to take over. But again, we're seeing history and lore related to bonfires, feasting, dancing, water rituals, gathering herbs, divination, like staying up all night on the shortest night of the year. We have mythology related to like solar gods, fairies, enchantments on Midsummer's Night. There's a huge midsummer festival at Stonehenge. I would say this is the time of year that you're seeing a lot of outdoor festivals, even in the modern world, whether they're called this or not, but like big summer celebrations. This is like, end of June, beginning of July, like 4th of July energy, right? Radiance, joy, abundance, full expression, celebration, strength, like impermanence. We're seeing symbols like the sun, sunflowers, oak leaves, bees, herbs, water, honey. Colors, of course, are going to be gold, yellow, bright green, orange, blue, like big, full expression of color. Foods related like berries, honey, fresh herbs, grilled food. Like I'm just thinking grilled vegetables. Yes. Simple practices. Again, watch the sunrise, the sunset, eat outside, swim, go visit water, gather herbs, light a fire. Everyone is like, light a fire or light a candle. I love it. But yeah, this is just like, what am I experiencing that is bright and beautiful and abundant as then we start to enter that seasonal shift? Okay, then we have Lughnasadh. It's like July 31st through August 2nd-ish, also known as Lammas, Lammas. And this is like end of summer, beginning of the harvest season. Now, of course, we as farmers are not harvesting right now, but wow, a lot of you who have gardens are overflowing in zucchini and tomatoes at this time of year. My flowers are looking sad, but grain, summer produce is begin ripening. Weather is hot. Daylight is starting to shift. First results of the growing season are visible. We are starting to gather the bounty. We are cutting down what has grown. It is like the gratitude and the sacrifice. It is like, for me, it feels like golden light energy, right? It is like we are transforming, but still like savoring. Like I do not want to rush into spooky season. Like this is like the end of summer county fair season. Often this is associated with a Gaelic festival named for Lugh, a god associated with skill, excellence in many arts. There's connections in that with agriculture. Celebrations include athletic competitions, fairs and markets, trading, matchmaking, legal arrangements, journeys, hilltop and lakeside gatherings, harvest celebration. Llama specifically comes from Old English loaf miss, loaf mass, when bread made from the first grain was blessed. They're a shared seasonal moment. There's different historical origins. Again, this is the blending of cultures and traditions. Modern connections. See, here we go. County and state fairs, farmers markets, baking competitions, harvest festivals like fall festivals, late summer family reunions, going back to school. You'll see, at the county fair, like celebrating skills and accomplishments in livestock, in baking, in 4-H projects, in like needlepoint and photography, right? Themes and intentions for this time are harvest, first fruits, skill, labor, sacrifice, gratitude, community, sharing. Symbols: grain, bread, baskets, sickles, harvest knots, tools, markets. Colors: wheat, gold, yellow, bronze, deep green, early orange, and red. Foods, of course, bread, corn, grains, berries, early apples, seasonal vegetables, and beer. Simple practices: bake bread. I did not do that. Let me know if you do. But going to the farmer's market, we are going to the fair tonight as a family. So check that off. Sharing produce, sharing bounties from your garden, celebrating a skill or an accomplishment or a goal, something that has come to fruition, like really taking time to honor the specialness as we close out the summer months and the summer seasons as we prepare for the new school year. Doing something intentional with your family, evaluating what is ripening, and also like sitting with like, what do you want the rest of the year to look like? Like, what, again, are we preparing for as we go through the rest of the year? So each one of these is an invitation of like, what seeds are being planted, what's germinating, what's blooming, what's harvesting, what are we releasing, and like what's laying dormant. That is the cycle that we exist in nature and as humans. So the Wheel of the Year is a framework to be able to recognize that throughout the course of the year. And it reminds us nothing blooms forever. Rest is part of the process. Point blank. You have to rest. You have to be dormant. When we harvest, it is both full of gratitude and the grief of release. Like, I know how this works every year. The middle of summer, green tall corn is my favorite. And then it starts to tassel. And I know that it has to tassel, but it makes me a little bit sad because it means that we're getting closer to the world not being green, right? And then we start harvesting and it's so freaking fun and exciting when we're in harvest. And I love seeing which fields are coming out. And then all of a sudden, like every field has been harvested. And there's really a lot of sadness in that for me. And also the gratitude of a bountiful harvest, right? The Wheel of the Year teaches us that the darkness is not inherently bad. It is a necessary part of our journey and our evolution. Light is beautiful, but it is not permanent and it is not guaranteed forever. Light always fades, both within ourselves and in what's happening in the world. Every ending contains the conditions for a new beginning, and different seasons ask different things of us. They have different themes. They have different intentions. It connects to our motherhood, to our business, to our evolving identities, to the way that we see ourselves. We no longer have to pretend it's summer. We no longer have to try to be visible, productive, expanding, abundant, and fully alive all the time. Nothing in nature lives that way. There are seasons for beginning and seasons for growing, seasons for celebrating, seasons for gathering, seasons for releasing, seasons for grieving, seasons for resting, and waiting for that first spark to return to us. Now, this doesn't have to be complicated, right? Go outside. Take part in activities of the season. Maybe weave in something new. Do a little bit of research. I know I love listening to like a podcast episode or even listening to these books on audiobook to just like get some conceptual understanding. But like I did not go all out crazy for these over the last year. You can there are people who create beautiful seasonal altars, who like really weave a lot of ritual and intention. And I freaking love that. I have participated in really beautiful ceremonies for each of these, but like, that's not where you have to begin. Right? It is the intentional practices of noticing the theme of what's happening both within yourself, in the world around you, in what is happening around us culturally, like learning some of that mythology and tradition if it resonates with you, that at the very minimum, just like honoring the season that you're in and loving it for what it is without trying to rush on to the next one, like being really fully present in your life. That is what the will of the year invites of us. It is presence in our life. It is gratitude for where we're at. It is the ability to go through the natural cycle that has always existed, that people have always participated in. But in our modern society, we have the, I put this in quotes, luxury of disconnecting from. In fact, I think the disconnection from this is what's making us feel so isolated and disconnected and starved, because we are meant to live in this cycle of reciprocity with the world around us, with the people around us, and to celebrate and be fully present where our feet are right now. So if you have also been diving into the Wheel of the Year, I would love to hear your reflection on this. I would love for you to share this with a loved one or someone you think might be interested in it. And if you want to dive deeper and celebrate Samhain with Kelsey Anderson and I, we are hosting Balefall this October 2026 in Montana. It is going to be freaking amazing. We are weaving the intentions and lore and storytelling of both Samhain and also the Hunter's Moon as energies to work with to like really move you through this beautiful journey of the weekend, in addition to doing like sound healing and Finnish sauna. We are going on a hike near Glacier National Park. We are doing elemental work. We are doing ecstatic dance. We have like a really fun book fair planned. We are creating things. We are journeying and navigating, and it's just going to be incredible. And I would love for you to be there, especially if this kind of sparks something in you and you're not sure what's in store. Like, come experience the magic of the season with us. Last year, I was able to go to a retreat that was on the cusp of Samhain, and we were able to like really sit and enjoy it for several of our meals. And it just lit a spark in me. I will never go back. Kelsey and I are planning a feast that will be all themed. We'll be in really beautiful outfits with a beautiful table and a curated feast from a private chef. Like, it's going to be incredible. You are going to love it. And we're going to do a lot of really powerful work there too. It's like the in-between, like really deep emotional depth and work, and also just having like one hell of a good time. Like, it's not that serious. This is so fun. Anyway, we'll link up information for you on that. Until next time, I'm so grateful for you. Thanks for being here with me. Hey friend, I hope this conversation sparked something real in you. Something that feels like truth, curiosity, or the courage to keep becoming. If this episode resonated, I'd love for you to share it. Take a screenshot, post it to your stories, or send it to one of your friends. You can always find me over on Instagram at Emily Rushel, where I love continuing these conversations and hearing your takeaways. Truly, your DMs are one of my favorite parts of podcasting, so don't be shy. I'd love to reflect and connect with you over there. I'm so grateful to be surrounded by a community of women who ask hard questions, sit in the discomfort of the unknown, blaze new paths forward, and ultimately come home to their wild and waking selves. See you next week.